DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday. Another beautiful day in our fair city. Willie, Derek, and I were out at Titans practice today. I'm only speaking for myself. I was stewing in my own juices. I went home. I took a shower. I feel so much better. Derek, you look like you haven't showered.
Nah, I have not. There we go.
There you are.
I have not showered.
That's okay.
Yeah, I shower when I get home. I was too tired. I just kind of laid around like a slob.
Why I dislike summer, and this may come as a shock to you to hear that I dislike summer. On my power rankings of seasons, summer is a clear 4th out of 4.
I love summer. I love it.
One of the main reasons I dislike summer, I don't like sweating when I'm not exercising. So when I'm watching practice today and I'm sweating profusely, I don't like that feeling. So I had to go home, get cleaned off. Now I feel better. Now I'm my best self for all of you for the next 3 hours. And also, I'm doing a courtesy to Willie and Derek that I don't smell for the next 3 hours because they're trapped in here with me.
See, I never tend to smell.
Okay.
That's the thing with me. I mean, I didn't sweat that much. Well, I lie. I did sweat a lot. No, but not that much to I had to. But it wasn't as bad.
No,
it cooled off.
Anybody who's saying it's hot out there has not been
exactly
the last 5, 10 years, 15 years. Like there's so many stretches of significantly hotter days than we've had at any. Take the hottest day that's happened so far. It doesn't. It's a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Today was like perfect weather.
Yes,
it really was. Now.
I wouldn't call it perfect.
It was perfect.
It was great
for August.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't 4th? The most oppressive day in terms of heat, but I still
okay. I would take the last 10 August 4ths. I guarantee you there have been some way more oppressive. Like this is. I'll take this.
This is mild.
Anytime.
Yes, this is mild. We had a nice breeze. Everything was going in our favor, man.
Cloud cover.
Exactly.
All right. I'll stop.
So stop complaining.
I'll stop.
Get ready to sweat. It's okay to sweat. Alex.
Exactly.
It's okay.
Don't worry about it. We're sweating to the oldies here.
You're supposed to sweat. Your body is supposed to sweat, man.
Call me Richard Simmons because I am sweating to the oldies here on DMase.
Bro, like
no, well, I used to. At one point, I did.
You should take your picture tomorrow like Richard Simmons.
The tank top?
The striped shorts, right?
We'll get you a wig.
Yes. That's an idea. That's an idea. Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports will join us at 3:40. He was also at practice, so we'll hear what he thought about practice. Trevor Matich will join us at 4:20 for his weekly visit. So a couple of headlines from Tennessee Titans practice today. Let's start with the one that generated the most reaction. Jeffrey Simmons was basically in a handicap match, a 3-on-1 handicap match against 3/5 of the Tennessee Titans offensive line. I believe it was Austin Schlottman who was the initial target of Jeffrey Simmons' rage. J.C. Latham, a frequent foil of Jeffrey Simmons during practice, stepped in. Jeffrey Simmons threw a punch, and Robert Saleh put him in timeout. He stayed out for the remainder of practice, but he worked on a side field, did all of the things he probably would have done, simulated at least, on a side field. But remember, famously, on more than one occasion, Jeffrey Simmons got into a skirmish, a scuffle, a brouhaha, whatever word you want to use, during practice under Brian Callahan, and Brian Callahan kept him in practice. Robert Saleh said today after practice, the rules are if you throw a punch in a game, you're out. You throw a punch in a practice, you're out. So Jeffrey Simmons did not complete practice with his team. I will say one thing before I get y'all's thoughts on this. I saw the moment where Jeffrey Simmons was being pulled out of the pile. He was being held back by one of the, I believe, assistant defensive line coaches. I was several yards away from Jeffrey Simmons, but I saw that look in his eyes. And I'll tell you something. You do not want to be on the receiving end of a stare down from Jeffrey Simmons. That is terrifying, even from my vantage point several yards away. But Willie, Derek, what did you think of the skirmish, the scuffle, the brouhaha, whatever you want to call it, and Saleh's reaction to it after practice?
I mean, it was one of those because you could like when you know Jeffrey's getting into something, he's not just going to let it go. He's like Jason. Like just when you thought you had Jason, you walk away and Jason stands back up, and now you got to encounter Jason once again. That's how Jeff is. It's like they're pulling him away, and it's like, okay, it's about to calm down. But no, Jeff ramps it up again, and it's that second ramp up that just blows everything out of proportion. But I don't think you couldn't have written a better sort of scene in a movie than what happened today, because I think this is what everybody was waiting on. That moment where the oftentimes, hot-headed leader, gets into it and he encounters something with the head coach. Well, this is the moment that we wanted, and the results is what we hoped for. These are the same results we were looking for last year, I believe it was last year, 2 years ago, when the same situation happened in the practice, and Callahan was more so of the player coach saying he can stay in the game when in actuality he knows as well as anybody else knows, once you throw a punch, you're out of the game. So what makes practice any different from a game? If you are allowing bad habits to happen in practice, they're going to continue in game. So you looked at that and you thought, this ain't the guy for the job. And then, another year or two later, you get the same sort of reaction or same sort of situation. And what happens? The head coach steps up and becomes a leader of the team. And this is what Jeffrey was asking for. When Callahan got fired, we need somebody that's going to come in here and lead us. And this is the way that you lead. Sometimes you have to make an example of one of your best players. You have to, because if you don't, people are going to say, here we go again. He can't stand up to the guys that really have voices in this locker room.
I thought it was really impressive how matter-of-fact it was. I didn't see Jeffrey Simmons, who could have maybe ramped it up. Like Jeffrey Simmons was, like, I thought it was apropos to say he was put in timeout because he wasn't ejected from the field. He didn't go into the locker room. He had to continue to work out on the other fields, and he was all by himself. And I can see certain guys saying, why would you show me up like that? It was just as much the offensive line's fault. Why isn't there an offensive lineman over him? But it was just Jeffrey Simmons, just the leader, the highest paid player, the best player on the team. It says a lot that the coach would just, in a matter of fact, that's the rule. Doesn't matter if it's the best player, the worst player, anywhere in between. I think that is a great tone setter. And like Derek said, it's the perfect thing to happen to test out who's running the show, who's the new chief. Robert Saleh is the new chief. And he didn't make a big deal out of it in the press conference. And quite honestly, the media didn't pepper him with all these follow-up questions. How did you do that? But it was just like, that's the rule. You go out. And so that impressed me as much as anything. So he handled it about as well as you can. And he said, it's probably going to happen again. He didn't mention who would be involved, but they were like, do you expect that kind of stuff to settle down? He goes, no. He goes, I like when it gets heated. I want extreme competition, but you can't cross the line.
He said he wants his players to toe the line of violence.
Yes.
I was like, damn, there's a catchphrase for
But
you. There's a slogan.
He didn't get all serious. He laughed. He goes, no, this is what we want this in practice. This is the second day in pads. Let's go.
But I mean, it's true. You want them to play with an aggression, but also, being able to control themselves within that aggression. Because after a while, 300 pounds leaning on 300 pounds, somebody's going to get upset. And in that irritation, you have to be able to understand that, okay, take one for the team or I get them in the next play. You can't all of a sudden just explode each and every time.
How do you think, Derek, it plays to the offensive line? Because the offensive line has been hearing it for the last 3 years. You guys stink. You guys can't protect your quarterback. You guys are a big weakness on the team. They're trying to build an identity. And every offensive line, good or bad, probably gets into a skirmish or two during training camp. But what did you think about? Like, I thought about that while that was going on. Do you think that's an important thing to watch for?
You have to. I think JC did the right thing. You have to. If you see one of your fellow line mates getting into it, you have to go. There's no hesitation. I don't care. You have to be there for him because, like anything, you that unit is the most important part of the team. They are. And if they don't feel like they have each other's back, how do you think the communication is going to be on the field? So they got to know they got each other's back. Those guys move in herds. That's why not too many people mess with them, because if you mess with one, you're messing with them all. And so I don't, I'm not, upset or anything that JC or disappointed that JC, but JC did what Jeffrey Simmons should have done. Just kept it a scuffle. Grabbing each other, pushing, no throwing. That's toting the line, because the NFL, they're going to let you get away with the, pushing and holding and stuff like that. It's when somebody throws a punch. Well, JC didn't throw the punch. So JC played right up to that line where he forced, for whatever reason, he forced Jeffrey Simmons to then throw a punch.
The one thing I want to give kudos to, and I'm not sure who it was, but the gentleman out there in the hoodie with no pads, no helmet or anything, Jeffrey is still hot. Like, he is swinging. He's being restrained. And this guy did a great job of breaking him down. Like you said, containing him without getting,
clocked.
Getting clocked, accidentally, because Jeff is hot. Like, he's throwing elbows and he's like, get off of me. Where is it? He at one point, he tried to go back around the pile to get back in it. This guy did a heck of a job boxing him out.
Not easy.
I mean, I would have gotten smoked right in the nose or jaw.
You got to get low, man. You got to get low.
He got low.
You got to get low. You got to have a base to you.
Lowest man wins.
Yeah, I guess he won.
One texter says, well, Brian Callahan may not have known a punch in a game gets you ejected. Knowing the rules wasn't his strong suit. Brian Callahan catching some strays in the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com. Josh from White House says, anything over 75 is hot for me. I've lived here all 37 years of my life. It's not okay to sweat just standing still. Bleep summer. Josh, I'm with you, my man. I'm with you.
Yeah, y'all not human.
How do you hate summer?
Yeah, y'all are aliens.
I told you why.
Go to the pool.
Yes, exactly.
Don't you like it when it's pitch black outside at 4 p.m.?
Yes, I am one of those sickos.
Oh,
and if we lose daylight savings time, I'm going to be very upset about it.
You're insane.
You're alien. You are.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. David from Murfreesboro says, there's no difference between the defense being a bunch of dogs and the offense. They're both going to rally and defend their boy. DMase called it.
Yeah, you just got to know when, again, you got to know when a journey has ended and we're done with the pushing and the shoving, because none of this, at least not in my experience, none of this has filtered into the locker room that I've seen. None of it has filtered where they were going to blows in the locker room. Now, they may have gotten to the locker room and was arguing, but outside of that was done. And typically it didn't even get there to the locker room. But what forces you to get that angry, knowing good and well you're not taking this into the locker room, that you're throwing punches? I am happy in the sense that this situation did happen, but I'm disappointed once again, because this is your leader and he's been through this several times. Good. This scenario was made for Robert Saleh. That's who this scenario was made for. It has sort of put a chink in the armor of Jeffrey Simmons, because it's happened again. You should be at a point. Like, I played with guys, man. I played with some great defensive tackles, Sizzle, Carter, Kurz, all like some great ones, with a high motor. But they've always found a way not to make that same mistake over and over again. We can, like I said, we can shove and push. It happens all the time. But when you throw punches, that's when the ejection comes. That's when it's hurt your team, type of thing. So again, I'm happy in a sense it happened, because now Saleh was able to sort of hey, I'm the head coach. You're out. This is the rule. This is a hard rule right here. It happens in the game. You're out. It happens in practice. You're out. I'm not going to even argue with you. Go over there and work out. Jeffrey did the right thing, went over there, and I'm sure he talked to the guys afterwards or in that little scuffle, But again, this can't be you every camp. It just can't. Eventually, you just got to get to a point where you ain't the one throwing punches.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Has Jeffrey Simmons been ejected from a game for throwing a punch?
I don't think he has.
I don't think ejected.
No.
He's had unnecessary roughness penalties.
Yes. Which are not nothing. I mean, you don't want to take those penalties. But
I mean, we know when the switch gets thrown, he gets very emotional, and that's happened in games too. But he's never been ejected.
See, the thing is, he manages, which is a good thing. That's why it's like I hate that it keeps happening. But when he's in a game, he never manages to get to that point. So my thing is, well, treat practice that way too. It's like it seems like every time you've gotten a penalty, it hadn't been to the extent that you got thrown out of the game. Now, you may have gotten a 15-yarder, which hurt the team, but you didn't put the team in a position where now they have to find somebody to replace you. So kudos to that. That's great. But you got to, do that in practice too. So, but some people can say, hey, listen, I'd rather he do it in a game. I'd rather he do it in practice in a game, which is true because he hadn't done it in a game.
Andrew says, Adam, do we get retroactive words of the day, or am I overstepping with that request? I'll go back. I'll go back and give you a word of the day from when I was out last week, and I think it's an appropriate word for today. Today's word of the day is sultry, which means very hot and humid when it describes such things as seasons, days, and weather. I think today was a sultry day.
My girl is sultry.
Yes, that's the other definition of sultry.
My girlfriend's sultry.
That's the other usage of the word. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons getting into yet another scuffle, skirmish, brouhaha, dust up. By the way, it wasn't the only one. Right after Simmons's incident, Ella Guyamaner and Marcus Harris came to they didn't fight, but
that was over with before it began.
Yes. And then Robert
count that.
Right. It was the undercard to the main event.
Exactly.
But then Robert Saleh did pause practice and tried to get everyone to cool their jets before getting back to work. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons, JC Latham, yet another physical confrontation between the two of them at practice. Coming up next, some other news and notes from Titans practice today. I'm sure you've seen the video of Carnell Tate, Cam Ward hooking up for a bomb. We'll talk about that. Also, a potential injury that would not be good for the Titans if it's anything serious. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 today. The Nashville Sounds take on the Memphis Redbirds. First pitch is at 6:45 p.m. You can catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina.
All right, let's talk twice daily. Remember, they've got the great rewards program. Make it part of your routine twice daily. Save money over the long haul. As the school year gets going, your routine gets going. Unlock those special discounts. Earn the points by saving money every time you go. If you're part of the rewards program, you get points every time you go there. Go back to the well. You can enter in sweepstakes. You can win stuff. Lots of ways to get rewarded. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. They've got the locations all around our listening area. They're fresh all day. And when that routine gets thrown off, it's a great place to go and get all of your needs. If you need to get the pizza delivered, they've got that. Plenty of options, examples of that. Twice Daily, big sponsor of 102.5 The Game. They're fresh all day.
DMase, Vingen, and Dominic 102.5. The game. You can safely assume that Connor Newt is in charge of music today. I think this song came out before you were born, Connor.
Most of these did.
Just makes
Now,
me
is there
feel
a theme
so
we
old.
have to decipher today?
I mean, it's pretty easy. It's one I've had in my back pocket.
Boy bands?
Boy bands. Yeah.
Boy bands. A little in sync to kick off the program. By the way, during the break, one unnamed texter, sent in a Photoshop of me on Richard Simmons's body with the sequined tank top and the striped short shorts. I will say my hair looked similar to this.
Spot on.
When I actually grew my hair out, so it's not completely off base there. So good work, texter. About Jeffrey Simmons getting into yet another Pier 6 brawl during Titans training camp practice. We received two questions. Well, the same question from two different people, Sonny and Robert. Sonny says, I'm not saying this is what happened today, but do coaches ever tell a player to start a scuffle, to send a message, change the energy, create some chemistry, etc.? Robert says, any chance the scuffle was staged to show Robert Saleh is going to handle it? Derek Mason, what do you think?
Listen, I've never experienced that. I think that if you got to do that, then you're not the right guy for the job. You're just not. If I have to manufacture something, then why did you take this job? These are organic things that happen. Fights in practice. They happen because it's a buildup. It's not just a one-off. A lot of things are just build up. That's why at the podium he said, listen, we've been in pads, the last 2 days. We've been in practice, for over a week, almost 2 weeks. Guys are tired a little bit, even though I didn't think it was that hot out there. But that's sort of like a breeding ground for something like this to happen. That's why you can't go out there and say, hey, listen, I want you to start a fight right after the second period, and I'm going to come in and throw you out. I'm looking at you like, man, what? Dude.
I don't think you do that. But, DMase, I think you would agree. Coaches, privately, they may not say it, they like when you push the envelope. They like when you go up to the line. They want to see toughness. They want to see bravado, provided you don't cross the line. So I do think if you're trying to get noticed, if you're trying to make your mark, I think it's a way for coaches to say, hey, boy, I love what Vingen just did. You see Vingen stick his nose in there? I like that. I do think that's a thing, especially for guys trying to make their mark. It'd be one thing for especially with a new coaching staff, a veteran doesn't need to do it, but somebody trying to get noticed. And this is where you can get in trouble, right? If you cross the line, you got to know how to do it smart.
But those situations like that, they happen all the time throughout, camp. It's how far can I push my team? Because you want to find out which guys are going to be disciplined enough to stay with the task at hand and not do things that are going to hurt your team. So, we may run, a fourth, goal line stand because y'all tired, y'all pissed off. Now, I'm going to put y'all on the line of scrimmage again. And I want to see if you can maintain that level of professional and detail, because we're going at this for the fourth time and everybody's tired. It takes that little, I'm going to start early. Boom. False start, offense back 5 yards. Or the defense jumps off sides, which really doesn't mean anything when you're that tight. But yet still, it's one of those deals where I'm pushing you to see if you know how to handle being in pressure situations like that. I don't think they do it to get a guy to fight, because that's the last thing you want.
You don't want to fight.
Yeah.
But I do think also it's a fine line for a player of toughness, bravado, and false toughness, false bravado, right? There are guys that are in it every day and come out of there over time where the coach is like, man, that's one tough hombre over there. Somebody's always challenging him, and they're not winning that challenge. I like so-and-so. I like Vingen in the trenches with me. I like him in the dark alley. You want to be that guy, right?
Yeah.
That's the guy I want to take into the fight.
I'm sorry.
But then there's other guys.
Nobody would ever say that in
Right.
the history of the world. I want Vingan with me in that dark alley.
I want him in the fight. But there's other guys you're like they're mixing it up like that. They're getting noticed, but it's false, right? Like he's a poser. That's
something that's been said about me before.
Okay. Well, try to be the former and not the latter. We're trying to make a club here.
Nobody's gonna say, you know what? Like I've seen these interviews. All right,
goodness.
I've seen these interviews with they're usually involving wrestlers, and it's like, all right, you're in a bar fight. You get to pick 3 of your fellow wrestlers to help you get out of this bar. Who are you going to pick? In no situation, if anybody, not just a wrestler, but if anybody was asked that question, no one say Adam Vingan. That's a guy that I would help get me out of this bar with my life intact. So I appreciate you even saying that. Can we clip that and use that? Because
you could take the punches while everybody else get out.
I'll make a promo for you. How's that?
Yes.
There you go.
The other couple of notes from practice today, Cam Ward, I would use the word mundane to describe his overall performance in practice today. It's fine. Inconsistent, but the one play that everybody has been waiting for, Cam Ward to Carnell Tate, 65-yard deep pass touchdown. Carnell Tate outran Amani Hooker and Alontae Taylor. Basically did a front flip into the end zone. We were right there. We were standing in that end zone. It was a fabulous play. And look, Derek, you know this full well, having caught many of these passes in your illustrious career. There is nothing that gets asses out of seats at a football game more than a deep touchdown pass. And you could see it in the fans who were in attendance at practice today. This connection, Willie, Ward to Tate, is so important to the trajectory of this team. And to see them hook up for the first time like that, it was nice. And we had a great view of it too.
That was that was, very good talent on display. And I don't know that there's ever been a question about Cam Ward's ability to make a throw like that, or even I'd be curious what your thoughts on Tate, Derek, as a deep threat. But the more I watch Tate, he's just so businesslike. He's smooth. He's consistent. I don't feel like I don't think they're forcing the ball to him, but he just gets catches in the flow of the drill. And I feel like that could be turned up once he's ready. I feel like they're working on different things, but I really like what I see from Tate so far.
Yeah, I think he's doing some of the things that they believe he would do and that they've seen him do at Ohio State. He's not a blazer, but he's a guy that can beat you down the field. He has great body control. He knows how to set up the defender to get on his hip. And then he uses his size to pretty much create space. He did that on that deep post. He showed some speed, got some separation, and did what he did. At Ohio State, he caught a lot of deep balls. He was their true deep ball guy. Smith was more of the all around guy, but when they wanted deep passes a lot, they threw it to Carnell Tate because he got a lot of the. Now they need him to do it more consistently, and with time, you hope that things like this you start to see more and more in games and not just practice. So I think the young man is coming along well. I'm not going to be the one that's going to put too much pressure on him, but I think he has the talent and the ability. It's just about him linking up with Cam and make sure those two guys are on the same page.
The other important note from practice today, Dan Moore did not complete practice. He suffered an undisclosed injury. Robert Saleh did not have an update on Dan Moore after practice. I saw Dan Moore walk off the practice field under his own power, did not seem to be limping, did not seem to be in any serious pain, but he did not return. And it goes without saying, look, Dan Moore, at best, he's an average left tackle in the NFL, starting left tackle, probably more below average than average. But the state of the offensive line, Willie, as it is, if Dan Moore is injured for any significant length of time, Titans got problems.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I didn't really notice anything when he came out. So and Robert Saleh, that was a one odd part of the press conference where he was basically saying, I don't really know what happened. But he didn't seem alarmed like it was going to be anything serious. I think as far as the offensive line, they are rotating different guys in there, especially at the right guard position. They actually had Cordell Volson take the podium today. Interesting guy. I wonder who ends up grabbing that spot at the right tackle, because my expectations are still low. I'm setting the bar. If you could just have an average offensive line, that'd be a nice step forward. Latham could really make a big difference along those lines. But that's something to watch every day. And I am a believer, Derek, in the defensive line. I think the defensive line is really going to be a good evaluator of the offensive line. I think they're going to make those guys work. I think it will give them a good gauge of how much progress they're making in the offensive line, because I do think the defensive line could be a big strength of the team.
Yeah, based upon the production you got from the guys that came in via free agency, obviously Jeffrey Simmons and some of the guys that were here last year, I think that defense, when healthy, especially the front, is going to be one of the better in the National Football League. When you look at the offensive line, it's just if you have Dan Moore go down, who you gonna put in? Deckless? Do you move over to Crenshaw Dixon to play in this spot? This line is already a work in progress. The only true main, definite you have is Peter Skoronski. JC, I think, is close to that, but he still has to overcome, not playing much last year and what he had to go through last year. Now he had to reinvent himself and come in, and so hopefully he can stay healthy and start to make that progression that we were expecting last season. So this line is already fragile. They can't have guys go down, because if this offensive line, again, regardless of who they put around Cam, no matter how much Cam takes that next step, if he's not protected up front, it's going to be hard.
615-737-1025. If you did not see the Cam Ward to Carnell Tate hookup at practice, it's all over the Titans social media channels. So go check that out. If you weren't able to attend practice today, the Titans practice tomorrow is closed to fans and reporters. So no practice reports tomorrow. The Titans are not opening practice tomorrow. They will be back on the field, open to reporters on Thursday morning. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, our pal Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports will join us. He was also at practice today. We'll get his thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons, Cam Ward, Dan Moore. We'll discuss it all with Easton Freeze coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 102.5 the game. I'm sorry. Coming back to a sports talk radio show and hearing 98 degrees, it's not something you're used to. So.
Hey, man. Good music is good music.
Yeah. See, you weren't here last week. When I basically serenaded Willie on air with the songs. With songs.
Okay.
There was no 98 degrees.
Yeah, it wasn't no 98 degrees.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, and welcome in our friend Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. Hello, Easton. How are you?
Hello, Adam. It was good to see you at practice today.
Well, I'm glad to be seen. By the way, I do want to say this as an aside. I've never felt more like a celebrity than being next to Derek Mason at a Titans practice. I mean, Derek Mason, man of the people. Everybody loves Derek Mason.
Everybody knows him there. Is he like, what did he do? Is he known around those parts? Has he been there before? He must have.
I felt like a VIP for the first time in my life, standing next to Derek Mason throughout Titans practice today. So Easton, of course, multiple headlines coming out of practice today, starting with Jeffrey Simmons being ejected from practice after getting into a dust-up with J.C. Latham. I want to talk big picture here because we were talking about this to open the show. Not just that Jeffrey Simmons got escorted to the side field and was basically put in timeout for an hour and a half or however long it was, but just sort of the big picture thing. Jeffrey Simmons getting into yet another training camp dust-up. Robert Saleh flexing his muscles, so to speak, ejecting Jeffrey Simmons from practice. What's your big picture takeaway from that whole situation?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not particularly moved by it. It's a training camp fight. That's the nature of training camps, and it's a defensive lineman getting into a fight, which is the nature of defensive linemen. I mean, DMase knows this. Like, it's a job requirement practically to have a couple of screws loose to be a defensive lineman. I don't want a bunch of choir boys on my defensive line. It's a good way to have a bad defensive line. And we've known this about Jeffrey Simmons, right? Like, we know who he is. This is neither surprising nor new. It's just one of those things. Do I wish he would not punch people at practice? Yes, I do wish he would not punch people at practice. And I also think it's always funny when somebody tries to punch someone with a helmet on. You know it's not premeditated when you punch someone with a helmet on, because that's a dumb idea. But it's just a thing that has happened before, and it happened again this year. I guess my ultimate takeaway is you can set your watch to this happening, right? With Jeff in particular, early in just about every training camp. It happens. And then guess what? He's awesome at football, so who cares? If he doesn't in the game, he'll be really mad, but he hasn't. So
Dan Moore left practice early today, Easton, with an injury. Robert Saleh did not have an update on that injury after practice. He said he hoped to have an update tomorrow. Again, injuries happen during the course of training camp, but worst case scenario here, if Dan Moore is hurt for any significant period of time and unavailable, what the hell are the Tennessee Titans going to do on an offensive line that's already pretty weak as it is, even with Dan Moore inserted at left tackle?
Man, funny how that works, isn't it? Everybody hates Dan Moore until you realize what you have when you don't have Dan Moore. I think Dan Moore is a lot better than fans seem to think that he is. A lot of fans wish that he wasn't their left tackle, which I think is silly because I think he was exactly what we thought he was going to be last year, which is a fine starting left tackle. And you're right. They're in deep trouble if he is not available or if J.C. Latham is not available. This team does not have an established swing tackle yet. Now, there's not no hope. I do think that they have a couple of guys on this team, young guys. Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon was the UDFA last year that they prioritized with money. They prioritized in the way that they moved him around on the roster to ensure that he was on the team to kind of protect him from other teams that would have probably vultured him. And I have seen some things from him early this offseason once we got the pads on that made me think he may be picking up where he left off, which was relatively impressive last year for a UDFA. But a UDFA tackle is a UDFA tackle, and so you can't hang your hat on that after two padded practices at all. There's Austin Deculus, who got brought in and was truly one of the worst tackles that saw the field at all last year in Los Angeles. Now, I don't want to cast aspersions on a guy that I've not seen play for the Titans, but the numbers are the numbers, and last year he was very, very bad. So you're in trouble if he's down. And the good news is we saw him walk off under his own power. And so I would assume that it was more preventative than anything, and hopefully it's not a long-term thing. But whether it's now that they start to miss guys, or in week 4 or in week 12, whenever it is, losing one of these starting tackles is going to be really painful.
Now, Easton, how do you – I've been wondering this since camp, because being out there watching how this offense is sort of going to be ran, and it seems like they're going to prioritize those guys down the middle, and then meaning Wandale, and then try to hit it outside. But I'm wondering, how will Gunnar Helm specifically fit in this offense? Because he does have the talent. We've seen him go out there and make some plays, and we know that he became sort of this guy that Cam looked to toward the latter part of the season. But I'm afraid he may just get lost in the offense that is looking to be more wide receiver centric.
Yeah, he's one of a couple of guys that I have circled for that same reason, and I'm with you. Listen, it's a good problem to have if you've got too many mouths to feed that you're not quite sure who's going to get what and when. But you're right that we know Brian Daboll's MO in the past has been to really force feed his top 2 guys at receiver. And that's cool because the Titans have some guys at those positions that can handle it. But they also have guys like Gunnar Helm and Eligayamaner and Chimere Dike, and there are other, and I mean, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are guys that are going to get involved in the passing game some too. So they've got guys that can contribute as receivers, and you would want to contribute as receivers. And Helm is the one that I'm the most intrigued by because of the upside that we saw, because of how big his catch radius is, because of how sure his hands are. He seems like a playmaker to me, and I want to see him given more opportunity. I think that it's going to come as a result of the league-wide trend towards more heavier personnel. And we did see Daboll lean into that some more last year. Daboll's Giants, now granted he was fired midseason, but it was his offense. They ran roughly twice as much 12 personnel last year as the Titans did last year. So I think you're going to see a lot more 2 tight end looks, and that's going to mean more opportunities for at least one of them in the passing game. So I think that's where it's ultimately going to come from. But that is going to require Daboll to continue to lean into that modern trend and go away from what we've seen from him in the past.
Easton, tell me if you agree with this. I think the most impressive guy that I've seen all camp, and look, it may just be me, but the most impressive guy has been Eligayamaner. I think he's come in and he's redefining his role on this offense. He came in a different player. He looks more stronger, more explosive, and he seems like he attacks the ball more. Is that what you see? Is that what you are seeing from Elik as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You do not have to convince me to lean into the Elik hype. He's a guy that I really fell in love with when I turned on his tape before being drafted 2 springs ago, and I just really admire the way that he plays ball and the frame that he has to be bigger and stronger and faster than a lot of guys. I think he's a good ball player, and I have been really impressed by what we've seen from him this offseason so far. It is early, but he continues to turn heads and make plays and hang with some of the best defenders the Titans have on this team, who I know are good players. And so he's another one of those guys that, I'm not positive what his workload is going to look like, and unfortunately, it may be contingent on who stays healthy. I think that he can step up into a bigger role if somebody has to miss some time. But even if he is 3rd or 4th on the depth chart in terms of usage, I think that his prototypical X body type is going to lend to him being on the field more often than maybe some people realize, because you need that kind of an archetype on the field for a lot of different looks. And he's a playmaker. I think the Titans are going to want him on the field. And I think that it will probably be a lower volume, maybe higher production season for him. And hopefully we don't see what we saw last year, which felt like a kind of a typical rookie wall, where by week 12, 13, 14, you started to feel that production drop off a little bit.
Easton Freeze is with us from A to Z Sports. We're talking Titans. And I was wondering, there were some questions today about running backs. And one of the things that's hard for me anyway, when I watch these practices, is to tell what would happen in a game with some of the running plays.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah. And so I think we know what Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears bring to the table. What are you hearing about Singleton, Easton? Because that's a guy that, you always hope that you stumble upon a guy that can give you a little boost, and I'm curious about him.
Yeah, I will not lie and pretend that I have done a ton of digging on Singleton yet, kind of letting that marinate a little bit. But I have done a little bit of digging on Singleton just in the past couple of days, and the very preliminary returns that I'm hearing are that they really like him, that they have been impressed so far in the entire offseason process by kind of where he has come in and adopted the pro mindset and the pro lifestyle and really leaned into his coaching. And one of the things coming out that I personally had the biggest question for him, the topic I had the biggest question at, was just his vision and whether or not he saw the field in a way that he's going to need to be a successful NFL player. And I think the talent is all there. It's just a matter of whether or not he can improve on that front, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The bottom line is, it sounds like he is picking up on these things in the film room that you're hoping he would. And we're going to see, I think, a chance for that to translate to the field here during joint practices. And then I think he'll get a pretty decent chunk of opportunity during the preseason to kind of show off what he's done and what he sees and how talented he is, because he is a really impressive athlete. And there were times in college when he showed everybody that he can take over a game. He can be that kind of dominant player. And so I think that they are tentatively excited about what they have in him. What does that mean in terms of this year? I still don't know, because I think and I feel like we've been doing this every year for about 7 years now. It'll be the Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears show as long as Tajay can stay healthy. And if he stays healthy, he's going to be an electric element of the offense that's used maybe more than people realize and used in the passing game a good chunk. But he's got to stay on the field.
I am curious about Spears in this offense with the new play caller. Let's go to the offensive line. Easton, I know you've been trying to do your homework on Austin Schlottman. Tell me what you see right now at center and right guard, how it is materializing in your mind.
Sure. I mean, it's good to have the pads on, obviously, because we get to see these guys actually try to hold their own. We got to see big guy one-on-ones today for the first time. So the offensive line looks better in those than I would have guessed they would on day one. Now, a very large caveat is that there was no Jeffrey Simmons or Jermaine Johnson or JFM in those drills. So the deck was stacked. Even still, the depth of the offensive line in particular was impressing me. And you still had some talented rushers in there going one-on-one against these guys, including Schlottman, including Cordell Volson and Jackson Slater, who were duking out of that right guard spot. And they looked pretty good. I still need to see it in something resembling a real game to have any kind of faith or hope or really even set my expectations for what this group may produce early. But Schlottman is the starting center for this team. Nobody's really hiding that ball anymore. He is somebody that I think it's fair to put him in the tier of player that is a really useful swing interior lineman that you're glad is on the team, and in a couple of spot starts they have to come in. You actually feel pretty good about it. But if you gave him a full 17-game season to play, you just have no idea what it's going to look like. And so we'll just see, because he did get, I think, 4 starts last year for the Giants, and he looked good in those, quite good. But what does that look like over the span of a very long campaign? We have never seen it before, so they are taking the leap on him. And then between Volson and Jackson, it's early, so there's not much to say on that front. Here's what is interesting to me about this competition, and why when people ask me who I think is going to win the job, I lean Jackson Slater. It's because, as far as I see it, Cordell Volson has to win the job. I think Jackson Slater just has to tie the job. Because I think Jackson Slater is who they would like to win the job, because he is the homegrown option, because he is the cost-controlled option. He's the younger option. I think he has a higher ceiling than Volson does at this time in his career. And if I'm being really, maybe cynical is the right word for it, I think that, this team would like to avoid the picture of hired mercenary Cordell Volson, who came off not playing last year at all, out there as your starting right guard with 3 recent draft picks all standing on the sideline hoping to make the active game day roster. I don't think that's a look they would like to have to go with unless they have to. And so I think Jackson Slater is the guy that they would like to win the job. And if it's a tie, I think they'll lean his direction.
Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports has been our guest on DMase, Vingan, and Donick. Easton, as always, it's been a pleasure. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you, guys.
615-737-1025. You can react to what Easton Freeze had to say there about Titans practice today. 615-737-1025. Coming up next. I meant to get to this yesterday, but I heard an interesting conversation on a podcast I like to listen to about people in the NFL who have the most at stake this season. And the choice for the Tennessee Titans may surprise you. I want to discuss him coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Trevor Matich will join us in about 15, 20 minutes. Our weekly chat with our friend Trevor Matich will get into the Titans as well as college football with our friend Trevor coming up in about 15, 20 minutes. But today, before Titans practice, the coordinators addressed reporters. That includes, of course, new offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. By the way, Brian Daboll and Derek Mason, thick as thieves.
Good
Brian, as we were
say that.
Well, as we were moving away from the area where the coaches and players hold their news conferences, we crossed paths, with Brian Daboll, and he sought you out to give you a nice hearty handshake and dap you up, Derek Mason. He was happy to see you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was
Who
good
wouldn't
to see
be?
him. It was good to see him yesterday. I had to introduce myself to him, and he was like, I already know. But again, we've talked about that. But no, I told him I would say something to him today if I saw him before practice, and I did. And it was good to see him. So, we met briefly before that on my visit there to New England after I left here via free agency. And after that, he just, obviously he was with the Patriots for a while. He moved around, and this was the first time I had seen him in person.
I told you this after the fact because we were just chatting it up that it can be awkward when you meet someone that you've already met, like you're introduced to someone, like, hey, it's nice to meet you, and the person says, yeah, we've met. Like, it's awkward for both parties. Like, just pretend you haven't met. Just like, it's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you too, because it puts both people in an awkward position when one person says, oh, it's nice to meet you, and the other person says, yeah, we've met before, actually. Yeah.
Some people will give you no slack on that.
No, they don't.
They really make you feel small. That happens, like, oh man.
You don't have to.
You
do
go
that.
home after like, oh, I feel terrible.
Then you try to remember, God, where did I meet them? Like, oh.
But to be
I've
fair,
met you 4 times, Derek.
to be fair, how long ago was your visit to New England?
Oh man, that was like 4 moons ago. Man.
Okay, so I think it's okay if you didn't remember that you crossed paths with Brian Daboll when he was an up-and-coming coach with the New England Patriots during your NFL career. But the reason I bring up Brian Daboll is I was listening to one of my favorite NFL podcasts, the Athletic Football Show, and they had an episode last week talking about people in the league, players and coaches, who have the most at stake this upcoming season. And one of the people featured was Brian Daboll. Now, the hosts of the show did not go through every team. It wasn't like one person from every team who has the most at stake. It was the entire league. And Brian Daboll made the list. I want to play part of the explanation and talk about it. Here was the Athletic Football Show last week.
It's a little bit of what we were saying with Kevin O'Connell, where it's like the shine is going to come off. But I think with Daboll, it's like a different level, right? Where I think Daboll has now gotten a handful of opportunities, obviously coming off of the Josh Allen thing. Then he gets the head coaching job with the Giants, gets like a mini second opportunity there where he gets to draft the quarterback, and now is on a completely new opportunity being handed the keys with the first overall pick. And I think, first of all, that gives him a different set of expectations. Like, you are being handed the former first overall draft pick. It's the most talented player that he's had at the position since Josh Allen. And I know that what he did with Daniel Jones was cool. And like, Daniel Jones was a top 10 pick, but at that stage in his career, it was like, we need to fix him. And then Jackson Dart, I think we all understood, was like, this was a dice roll. It's going to take time. We don't know what we're getting. And not that Cam Ward is perfect, but again, it's the first overall pick. I think that there's just a different layer of expectations there. And then the other thing that I would say is, like, I just feel like if this goes poorly, it feels like this would be the last time where Brian Daboll is like front of mind for people as like, we need to go hire that guy to be our offensive coordinator. And like, you can obviously remake that in 3-4 years or whatever it's going to be. But like, if this year goes poorly, I don't think would immediately get like a hot job next season. And to me, that does mean that there's a lot at stake for him this year.
So when we hear that clip from the Athletic Football Show about Brian Daboll, if it goes poorly for him this year, also that means it went poorly for Cam Ward, which is not something that Titans fans want to hear. But there's something about Brian Daboll, Willie, that has stuck with me as anytime we've had a conversation about him, I think there is this perception that he is this Ben Johnson level mastermind because of the work he did at the beginning of Josh Allen's career. Because Josh Allen went from being a woefully inaccurate quarterback to being Josh Allen, and Brian Daboll happened to be there. So I think a lot of people associate him with that and think that he can fix anything that ails a quarterback. But then I'm also reminded of what FTN Fantasy had in the Almanac. We had Aaron Schatz on the program a couple of weeks ago in the Titans section. They wrote, quote, that Daboll has had 12 seasons as either a head coach or an offensive coordinator. He's only had 3 seasons out of those 12 with an above-average offense, 2 of which came with Josh Allen. So I'm wondering how much really is at stake for Brian Daboll, but there's a skepticism I have that he can be the guy that can get Cam Ward to where he needs to be. I'm trying to unpack all of this. What do you think?
I noticed the same stat that you noticed, and I've said it because I do think he has a glowing reputation around the league. And I don't think, because I've thought about this too, just being in the New York market and being in bigger markets, I don't know if that's the reason. It just seems like, and I thought Mike Vrabel got this benefit of the doubt. There just seems to be a respect and appreciation for how he goes about it. So I think that is what I'm leaning on more than the 3 out of 12. But the 3 out of 12, I have definitely stored away. And I'm asking myself, is that just because the Giants had a lot of limitations? The early Josh Allen years were still a building process for that particular Bills team. But one thing I am hearing a lot from the players, Derek, around the locker room, everybody we've talked to, whether they're on the podium or whether we talk to them off on the side, they seem to agree. They like Daboll. They like him coming in there. They feel like he's got a presence. And I think the prevailing thing is his system seems to be easily understood. I'm not seeing a lot of young players, well, he doesn't know this position or that position yet. It seems like an easy offense to learn, which hopefully will help young players.
Yeah, and that's what we got a chance to talk with Wandale. And that is one of the things that he expressed to us, that, the offense is, it's not this long terminology. It's sort of player friendly. It allows guys to understand. If you understand concepts, then it's not this long drawn out play. It's just understanding the concept of where you are. And a lot of guys typically work better when things are sort of condensed. And if you just give them a phrase, they remember it better than, making it a wordy thing. So, he has that, going for him, allowing his offense being sort of player friendly. But I'm just trying to, because I do believe what was said is correct. I think this for both of these coaches, not just for Daboll, I think for both. If this doesn't go the way that I'm sure they expect it to go, or we expect it to go, if this thing goes, the opposite direction, this may be their final opportunity to get as a head coach or a head coach in waiting. Because if it doesn't go well for Daboll, from an offensive standpoint, he's not getting a head coach job. And obviously, if it doesn't go well with Saleh, he's going to be out and he's not getting another job. So just as important as it is to Daboll, it's the same with Saleh. So you got 2 coaches, basically, this is it for them. If they don't make it work now, somehow, some way, they may not ever get this opportunity again.
And there's a lot at stake, of course.
Yes.
Not just for Brian Daboll, but of course, Brian Daboll and Cam Ward are inextricably linked, because that's why Robert Saleh hired Brian Daboll, to get the best out of Cam Ward. We saw it with Josh Allen. But the thing is, I wonder how many coaches could have truly helped Josh Allen. We have come to learn that Josh Allen is a one-of-one type of quarterback. great for Brian Daboll to be there, and he certainly gets to put that on his resume. Hey, look what I helped Josh Allen become. But part of me wonders, could any competent coach help Josh Allen become that because he's Josh Allen? But I digress. What I would be curious for your guys' thoughts on this, because you've attended more practices than I have. We've talked a lot about the things that Brian Daboll historically expects out of his quarterbacks. I know the two of you last week talked about an article on ESPN.com written by Ben Solak breaking down year two quarterbacks. And I know one thing that Solak emphasized, and we've emphasized it too, is Brian Daboll and his quarterbacks running, scrambling more often. As you two have watched practice, have you seen Cam Ward implement that into his game a little bit more in any noticeable degree?
I say yes. Not to a huge degree, but I see an occasional play that looks like, to me, to my untrained eye, a designed quarterback run. And I also see some plays where Cam Ward is 1, 2, 3. It's not there, but you see space, so you take the space and slide. I don't recall how often he did that last year in the preseason, so I can't compare it year to year. But I do know that last year he did not run the ball effectively. We also know that Brian Daboll historically likes his quarterbacks to run more, and running more effectively can help Cam Ward. So I am looking for that, and I do see it some.
I think they're going to try to implement it in a way that, benefits Cam, because I don't think Cam likes running. I don't think that's one of the things he sort of leans on as a superpower. He is, in essence, a true pocket passer with the ability to get outside the pocket. But in today's game, that ability has to threaten the defense. And if you have a wide open pocket, nobody's, open down the field, you have to run. It should just be instinctively in you to run. Now, I'm thinking what they're teaching him now is to run and then slide, because the last he wants to do, I think why he doesn't want to run, he feels if I run, I get hurt, I'm out. He had already got hurt, toward the end of the season last year, the last game of the season, because he was, got outside the pocket and was on a design run. He has to understand you can run, but also you can protect yourself in this game. So I think they're teaching him that, because he had one today where he slid. I think the other day he ran, he slid. So I know they're, teaching him, hey, take the 3 or 4 yards if it's there, but get down as quickly as possible.
Matthew from Jolton says Daboll got Josh Allen and Daniel Jones paid and had Jackson Dart looking good until he got hurt. Jared from Spring Hill says, so if it doesn't work with Daboll year one, would Cam Ward still get the benefit of the doubt?
If it doesn't work, I mean, it all depends on how things look, because eventually, I can say that, Cam, he has to have that ability to get better no matter what. So he's a part of all this. But when you change coordinators on a guy, year after year after year, the talent is only going to take you so far. It's the coaching and the mentoring that is taking that talent and allowing it to grow. But if you got a different guy every year, how is that beneficial to anybody? So I would say, yes, Cam would have a part in developing himself, but also if he has a revolving door with a coordinator and a head coach, that is not going to benefit him in no way.
615-737-1025. How much is at stake for Brian Daboll this season? A lot, of course, hinges on the development of Cam Ward. 615-737-1025. Coming up, Trevor Matich will join the program. We'll ask him about what he heard from Titans practice today. He wasn't there, but Trevor, he's keeping tabs on everything. Plus, we'll get his thoughts on college football as well. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingadindanik 1025. The game. More boy bands from Connor New today. Backstreet's back. All right. We're also back. And now on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, let's bring in our friend, Trevor Matich. Hello, Trevor. How are you?
Adam, I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. So, Trevor, as you know, there was a scuffle today at Titans practice between Jeffrey Simmons and multiple members of the Titans offensive line. Simmons isn't afraid to mix it up. But as our resident offensive lineman, take us into the mind of an offensive lineman in these situations. What are Austin Schlottman and J.C. Latham thinking when Simmons turns red during a drill?
The first thing is that you cannot allow them, the defensive line, to punch you or shove you unanswered. When I was a rookie, I was the most clueless rookie that ever existed. I was with the Patriots. I was a very good football player, but I thought that when I got pushed in training camp after I beat him in a one-on-one after the whistle, that I just go back and huddle up. And what I didn't realize is that when I did that, they thought that I wasn't a fighter. If I wouldn't fight for myself, why would I fight for them, right? And so I learned a lot of lessons that year, and after that, starting with the next year, I fought every day in training camp. I became a 6th-degree black belt in football fights. I could take a helmet off a guy's head with the chin strap buttoned and either hand it back to him or throw it across the field against his will. I knew what to do and what not to do. So the first thing you do as an offensive lineman is you do not allow the other side to push you and it's unanswered. That doesn't mean you start to throw hands and stuff, but the next thing is when you fight in football, you never throw a punch with a closed fist, ever. Because you're just going to hit him in something hard, a shoulder pad or a helmet, and break your own hand, for goodness sake. You push and you slap. You slap them in the head. It's loud when you slap somebody in the ear hole, let me tell you. But that's what you do with that. And it's got to be short and sharp. Don't have a lingering, long fight. That's when the coaches are going to step in and you are in trouble. Coaches understand that there are going to be fights in training camp. Temperatures are high. Guys are hurting. It's hot and muggy. But you got to go bang, 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 gone. Go huddle up before the coaches have a chance to react to it. And if you do that, you're fine. And also, don't be the guy that does it all the time. Jeffrey Simmons did it with 2 different guys in training camp today. The center, Austin Schlottman, and J.C. Latham, are right tackle. You know, Jeffrey Simmons, you can get away with a lot of things, but I will tell you this, that there's a lot of technique to this and a lot of do's and don'ts in terms of training camp football fights. And that's how I got my nickname in the NFL, which was Crime Dog. Whenever our offensive line and defensive line in training camp practice will get into a fight, 2 guys, you know, if it was even or the offensive lineman was ahead, I just let him go. But if the D lineman started to gain an advantage, I would step in and pretend like I was breaking it up, but I was actually impeding the defensive lineman. And when our guy got back into a position of advantage, I'd back out of it. Well, our defensive line never figured that part out. They thought I was just breaking up the fight. So they gave me the nickname of Crime Dog. That became my moniker on the team. And they didn't realize that I was cheating the whole time. So there's a whole ecosystem to football fights. But the most important thing is don't do it often. Don't throw a closed fist and make it very short and get out. Otherwise, you're going to cause all kinds of problems.
Trevor, Derek made a good point at the beginning of the program when we were talking about this scuffle at training camp. It seems like it was almost tailor-made for Robert Saleh to flex his muscles a little bit. In these same situations under Brian Callahan kept Simmons in practice. Today, Jeffrey Simmons threw a punch, and Robert Saleh said afterwards, if you throw a punch in the game, you're out. If you throw a punch in a practice, you're out. And Jeffrey Simmons was basically put in timeout for the remainder of the practice. There was at least an hour left in practice, if not more. What can this do for Robert Saleh as he tries to, command the locker room tossing out the best player, the highest paid player on the team, and for lack of a better term, making an example out of him this early in training camp.
Yeah, he needed to do that because part of the problem with Brian Callahan as a young new head coach is that he didn't know how to handle star players that make more than he does, that might have kids in school, that have been to the NFL longer than he may have been. How does he handle that kind of situation? Now, he'll learn from his experience. This is Callahan now, but now you've got Robert Saleh, who is a ready-made alpha male. And by putting Jeffrey Simmons in timeout, as you guys mentioned, which is hilarious, what he showed the entire team is that there is one alpha dog on this team, and that's me, the head coach. And you will do what I say. And that's important because when you think of what a job of a head coach is, it's not necessarily to go out there and be the most brilliant schemer of X's and O's. It's to be a strong leader that everybody follows, and they know if they don't, there will be consequences, and they respect that. They don't fear it in the NFL. You fear it in college, but they respect it in the NFL. And Robert Saleh, right off the bat, showed that he is a man that will be respected. Now, having said that, it was also interesting what Coach Saleh said in the presser after practice, where he didn't just say, "We will never fight." What he said was, "We want to instigate them fighting, but we don't want to give them any freebies." And that's where the discipline of not throwing a punch comes in. Not only does it protect his own players from getting mad, throwing a closed fist, and breaking his hand in practice, but it actually drills the skill of what to do in a game if you're in a situation where there's pushing and shoving. And throwing a punch is the last thing you want to do. But if you can instigate them into throwing a punch at you, then yay. And so it was interesting that Robert Saleh basically talked about that as a skill he wants his players to learn.
Trevor, it's good that you mentioned that because we had a texter text in and asked if coaches purposely, do this to try to, get a situation like this to happen so he can sort of flex his muscles. And I said, listen, I haven't experienced a coach like that. Because to me, when you're doing things like that, you're fabricating things. And I think players look at it a certain way. But what I have seen is coaches allowing a practice to go a certain way to see who can remain calm or see who can go right up to that point, but yet and still not cross the line where they hurt their team. Now, have you experienced that?
In the NFL, I have seen coaches push you to your limits, right? I've seen them push a unit to their limits. We had a coach, offensive line coach with the Jets named Larry. Coach, but he was a fire plug who could curse so spectacularly it transcended profanity and became poetry. And he would curse at us in training camp, and everybody else was all terrified. And I would look at him, and he thought that I was just not sufficiently afraid. And then finally he realized with me that I wasn't being disrespectful to him. I was just impressed, right? And he would drive us to our individual and unit limits. And I think that helped us to deal with the stresses of the NFL. But I think in college, they do it differently than in the NFL. In the NFL, they'll let you go and they'll see what your limits are. Sometimes they'll push it to them. In college, they'll manufacture it. A new coach at a new college often, and I've talked to guys about this, specifically college coaches, will put unfair physical and emotional stresses on guys to see what they'll do. In other words, they'll be unfair in what they're asking him to do. And then if the player does what he's supposed to do, the coach will pretend like he didn't and just drive him to the edge of his, his ability to handle it all. Because what he'll find out is which guys are going to quit the team, which guys are going to pout, which guys are going to lose their temper, and which guys are going to bear down and focus on doing it the way they know is right the next rep. And those are their leaders. And coaches in college will do that intentionally. The problem in the NFL is that, once again, you got guys making millions of dollars with kids in school, and you can't treat them like a college kid, right? And so you can push them to a degree, but it's more like, okay, I'm learning what your limits are, and I will coach you to that point. But if you don't then conform to what my limits are as coach, we'll get somebody else.
We'll talk with Trevor Matich, ESPN analyst. Now, Trevor, we've talked a lot about the offensive line, and particularly UD Skeffin is talking about them with Adam, but in particular, J.C. Latham. After reading what he had to go through last year, as far as not being able to do lower body strength work, and for an offensive lineman, that's like, that's everything that he has is his lower body. It's explosion. So knowing that he had to go through that, because there's still a question mark on JC this year. He came into the system where he was up an uphill battle because of the injuries, and it still remains that way. How much can he benefit from the way this offense is going, and how much do you think he can develop in this offense?
I think he can be one of the better, if not one of the best, right tackles in the NFL. I thought that when he was drafted. When they switched him over to left, I thought he had the skills to be able to develop over there. But I was happy that they moved him back to his natural position that he played at Alabama on the right side. That's just a big mauler side of the ball. And he's got good feet. I mean, at Alabama, when he got in trouble in pass protection, it wasn't because his feet were too slow and he got behind an edge rusher. It was that he overset. He set too far outside too fast, and the edge rusher came inside. Well, that's pretty easy to correct because you've got a guy with naturally good feet to start with. And so as long as he's healthy and as long as he has that fire in him, I think he's got the ability to develop into an outstanding player. The thing that I would hate to see, knowing what we know now, I mean, last year he dealt with a hip strain. We're finding out that he has had a strained pectoral muscle. There's things that he was dealing with. And you've got to give him a lot of credit for fighting through those injuries. But when it comes down to it, what he needs to do, and the team needs to help him, is to get fully healthy at some point, so that then he can do everything that he can do. Now, over the course of the season, you're going to be injured and everybody plays hurt, and I get that. But if he's got lingering actual injuries that the team doesn't allow him to heal before they throw him back into the fire, then they're never going to get the best out of him. And that would just be tragic, because I think J.C. Latham can be one of the best offensive linemen in the league. And then you've got Skoronski at left guard and Latham at right tackle, who are absolute anchors for the next decade for this team. And that would be a great building block, but he's got to be healthy.
Trevor, along those lines, Latham came into the league at 21. And the way NIL and combined with COVID has changed the average age. A lot of ways to win football games at the college levels have older, experienced guys. But you still have that crop of guys who are ready to get drafted because of the ceiling after just 3 years removed from high school. So you have Latham, who's still younger or at the same age as some college linemen typically are. So you still feel like there's so much room to grow. I noticed, too, the first 3 picks of their draft last year with Falk out of Auburn, Hill out of Texas, and, of course, Tate out of Ohio State. They're all 21. Are you looking at that more maybe than you used to, that let's see what they do as rookies, but let's also keep in mind they're young rookies?
They are young rookies, and I think a lot of it has to do, first of all, with if their body is really ready for the NFL. You know, if you come out early, some guys look the part, but their body isn't quite ready yet, and it'll take them a couple of years. We talk about, like especially linemen, offensive linemen, about how they need to gain functional strength. They need a year or two in an NFL weight room in order to be fully ready to play. And some of that has to do with the fact that their body just isn't quite ready yet. Some guys, and I think Latham is one of these guys, physically is ready to go much earlier than other people. But other than that, it comes down to, Willie, I think more what kind of system they played in college. And if you talk specifically about offensive line, when you're in a run and shoot or an air raid system like they used to run, a pure air raid like at Texas Tech under Mike Leach and things like that, you can be a great college lineman and not be prepared to play in the NFL at all, because you're always in an up stance and you very rarely have to put your hand in the dirt and dig somebody out on 3rd and 1 because you're throwing the ball on 3rd and 1 in that kind of a system. And so you've got to learn how to use your body and learn new balance points once you get to the NFL. And that's a very difficult place to try to learn that. It's very similar with quarterbacks who, in a system where they're running mostly RPOs and things like that, well, they're not necessarily prepared for what they'll have to learn in the NFL. And so I think with a guy like Latham at Alabama, I think that he had preparation to be able to come in and start fast in the NFL. I think the only thing that really held him back were, number one, injuries, which is not his fault because he's a hard worker. And number two, the fact that under Brian Callahan, they put him over at left tackle for a season and kind of slowed his development at right tackle.
Trevor, before we let you go, college question of the week. Thinking back a year ago, there was so much hype on Arch Manning with the curiosity of what he was going to look like. This year, I feel like he is like a sneaky candidate for, and I'm starting to see people write about this, a big jump from last year to this year. Do you buy into that?
Yes. And I think he's already made his jump, Willie. I think that last year he started slow. Part of it was him. Part of it was the guys around him. But down the stretch of the season, he may have been the best quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he ended up throwing 11 touchdowns to 1 interception, I think, to close out the season. And so I think he's already started to do that. And as long as the guys around him are up to speed, then I think Arch will be one of those guys that is going to perform as expected. Now, he might not be the best quarterback in the SEC. It might be Trinidad Chambliss at Ole Miss. Either way, though, I think when you talk about Arch, you've got a guy that's already shown that he can grow as a quarterback because he did it last year. If he continues to do that this year, that is what will make Texas the team to beat nationally.
Trevor Matich has been our guest on DMase, Vingan, and Donick. He joins us every Tuesday. Trevor, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up next week.
Great. Thanks, guys.
615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction coming up next. Again, that phone number, 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingen and Donick 1025, the game. 2 questions. 1, is this Boys to Men?
Yes.
2, is Boys to Men a boy band? I do not consider Boys to Men a boy band. Yes, they are a band of boys/men.
They're more of a group.
Yeah.
The interwebs told me they were a boy band. I looked it up to make sure.
I think the internet led you astray, my friend. I don't think Boys to Men is a boy band.
I will recall those days when they burst on the scene. I don't think it was the teeny bopper.
No,
kind of
it wasn't
of
a
a
boy
band. I think
band,
they were
no.
just a full-on legit
Group.
hit. Yeah.
Boy bands, I think of NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees, bands you've already played so far today.
This is a stretch, I think.
I think it's a stretch, Connor. I think it's a stretch.
Even though Boys is in the title of their
Yes.
group, I can see how
with a
Connor got
Z.
duped.
With
Yeah.
a Z.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is what happens when you have a 15-year-old
Hey, but listen, he went.
talking about boy bands.
He went, and that's what they told him. They said the boy band,
Ugh.
and they had Boys to Men on there
I
because they
think-
are a boy,
I mean,
sort of.
technically, yes, but when you're thinking about boy bands and the genre of boy bands, I don't think you put Boys to Men in there. That's all
No.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's a stretch at best.
I would
I'm
have
more
put
upset that you insulted my age.
Oh wow.
I wouldn't put like Blackstreet as a boy band either. So
No,
I feel like with R&B groups, it's different. That's a different genre.
they're more groups. They're more groups than bands.
Right.
In the R&B world, it's more group than
yeah.
band.
There's no
So
pleasing you people, is there?
no, I've enjoyed it.
I loved it.
I've
all.
enjoyed
Hey,
it.
listen,
I'm just
I didn't
saying.
bring it up, Connor.
I'm
I
just
didn't do
saying.
it. That was
Pretty good
this
for
guy
a
over here.
15-year-old, huh?
I'm just saying. Some of our listeners may have been. That's not a boy band. So I'm just speaking for them.
I need a beer.
Are you old enough for that?
You've watched me drink beer.
That is true. Josh from White House said, "What was Trevor's nickname?" He said it twice, but I couldn't understand. Crime Dog is
Crime
what he
Dog.
said.
Crime Dog.
Like McGruff.
It's a funny nickname. Crime
McGruff
Dog.
the Crime Dog. Take a bite out of crime. Yes, you got to get the sound effect in
Gotta
there
get sound
too.
effect.
And I was trying to think back Trevor's career alongside of Fred McGriff, who was also
Yes.
he's now a Hall of Famer, but he was
Crime
the
Dog.
crime dog, right?
Yes.
Because his name sounded a lot like McGruff when those commercials were playing. Taking the bite out of crime.
Yes. You got to think about it, crime, man. You got to get that sound
Right.
Every
Because
time you
that's in the
bring it up,
commercial every
yes,
time. It's just in your brain. It's imprinted.
yes.
Gator Tim says Boys to Men were 14 through 17 when they started. I get that. They were boys. They became men. Hence the name of the group.
Or here's another one. It was New Edition a boy band?
Absolutely.
I mean, they were,
I
but
consider
I
them
don't.
more
But they
group.
weren't like the teeny bopper.
I think
yeah.
they were an
Like,
R&B
There's
group.
something about a teeny bopper boy band that's different than a New Edition or a Jackson 5.
Yeah.
There's something a little distinct. I don't know. Jackson
I would
5,
say
can't really
Jackson
speak on
5,
because
that was more of a band to me. I would
Yeah.
classify the Jackson 5 as more of a band.
Yeah. I can't really speak to that because I can't remember them as
One
but-
Direction, clearly a boy band.
Right.
They
Yeah.
may or may not be on this list.
BTS, clearly a boy band. Like I feel like R&B groups and boy bands are two separate genres. Yes, they are. The bands are comprised of boys, but it's
Yeah.
two.
It's just different. I don't know.
Are we a boy band?
Yes, I guess. What's up?
Josh also says, "Thank you for the clarification on the nickname. Also, I have a music theme for you guys. Songs from bands that Joe Rexroad hates. That's very easy. Rexroad hates one-word named post-grunge bands. He hates Creed and Fuel and Live. He hates all. He hates all
Live.
that
Wait,
stuff.
No, Live doesn't belong in that group.
How do you hate Live? Live is great.
Live was in there. Live was not post grunge. Live was in the mix.
One
while that was
texter
going
says,
on.
"I thought Trevor said Line Dog. I have texted Trevor to confirm the nickname. Okay, so we can make sure we hear. One person suggests Menudo. Was Menudo a boy band?
Menudo is definitely a boy band.
I don't know what that is. So I guess I'm showing my youth.
They had a very brief moment
Yes.
in the sun.
Yes, 98 Degrees also in the text line. We did play 98 Degrees today. That's clear. One texter says, and here's an interesting, I think this texter makes a great point as we continue to take this show off the rails. Boy bands danced. I think that's very true.
Yeah,
Boys
you're
to Men
right.
dance. I've seen them in concert twice.
I
They
mean,
danced both
They
times.
weren't known for their dancing. though.
Motown Philly?
No, but they danced.
They danced in it, but
it wasn't as choreographed
Yes.
as NSYNC
No.
and the Backstreet Boys.
But
and
they
all
were
that.
not known for their dancing.
Right.
Like if you're talking about MC Hammer, I think he was that was a full-fledged band. To me, it was like a rap band. That MC Hammer.
Okay.
When I think of like Boys to Men or New Edition, even though they danced, they were not known for their dancing. They were more vocal.
Also, R&B groups like Boys to Men predated the phenomenon of boy bands. So we can't retroactively put them in that category. Boys to Men existed before the term boy band existed.
Okay.
So that I rest my case.
They're
Boys
fair
to Men is not a boy band.
But I played them on the air. You enjoyed it.
I did. One texter says the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys were not a boy band.
I don't think so.
No, we're not.
We're going way back.
New Kids on the Block, boys band.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
New Kids on the Block. Absolutely.
But
and that was before Boys to Men.
But you made I think during that time, that was the big craze, boy band. Because even when New Edition, those groups were out, they still were not considered boy bands because they had been out longer than say the other ones, NSYNC and all those other groups. So they were already classified as just a R&B group.
I also think that it used to be a little bit more of a negative connotation, the boy band. Almost like it's more the look than the talent. But if you look over the years, like a lot of these boy bands have had some legit talents.
But how many boy bands
Timberlake
are
and
still
Harry Styles
are still going strong?
Well, the band may not be, but there's guys that have risen up to be
like Harry Styles, in One
Justin
Direction,
Timberlake.
Justin Timberlake.
Right.
But boy bands just don't last long.
Usually not.
You know what this tells me? It tells me I picked a good theme today.
You've provoked thought. This is good.
My ruling is Boys to Men is not a boy band because Boys to Men existed before the term boy band
that's
was something
not true. No,
we even said.
New Kids on the Block was before.
They were
Boys
late
to Men.
80s.
No, New Kids on the Block.
80s. 80s, late 80s. Oh, yeah.
Was it late 80s?
Yeah. Motown Philly was, we just had, you quizzed me on this. It was,
in the 90s, yeah.
Early 90s, yeah.
Was the Jackson 5 a boy band?
See,
One
that's
texter wants to know.
that's one that's up for debate, I think.
One texter says boy bands are 2000s and newer and they don't play any instruments, only dance. Well, Boys to Men didn't play instruments.
They played piano. One of the guys played piano, didn't he?
Boys to Men?
Yeah.
No, they were a cappella. They
I
only
thought
sang.
one guy played a piano.
Well, they play a lot of
often.
instruments, but they weren't
Like
known
New
for that.
Edition, they were all singers, dancers. Right?
Yes.
They were not. The Jackson 5, the guys, one of the brothers had
played
the
guitar.
guitar. Yeah.
Boy bands
I don't know how that
grew.
worked.
Boy bands grew from the influence of Boys to Men and similar groups. I'm not getting there. Let's go to our phone line. Bring in Adam in Portland. I don't know if Adam has thoughts on boy bands, but Adam, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got plenty of thoughts on this. Hey, so what is this, dude? Like, I am like personally offended that you're calling Boys to Men a boy band.
Right?
It's ugly, dude. I don't like that at all. So I remember like trying to get girls to dance with me in 7th grade to Boys to Men, but not to a boy band. Like I'm not out there trying to get, some action to a boy band. It's the Boys to Men. Boys to Men were, I don't know, the standard, man. They set the standard. You can't call them. That's such an insult. It's a backhanded thing you're doing right here, and I don't like how you set it up. Like, that's not a good setup.
Thank you, Adam. Blame Connor.
Boy bands are great. I won't take that.
One texter says boy bands are preconceived auditioned groups. A regular group comes together naturally.
Oh, you're right.
That is an important
Yes,
distinction.
good point.
That is a very
Good
important
point.
distinction. Chad says Adam needs a gavel. I mean, I already have a bell. Should I get a gavel?
I'm a speaker.
Should I
Get a robe while you're at it.
Should I get a gavel? I don't know. Let us know. 615-737-1025. By the way, this entire segment was not supposed to be about boy bands, but I heard that and I knew the theme. And I'm like, I'm going to say something because I am ruling. I don't have a gavel, but I will rule. Boys to Men, not a boy band. That's okay, Connor.
Disagree, but okay.
You've got more time. You've got another hour to redeem yourself. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, I want to talk about Robert Saleh because Derek and I had an interesting conversation today as we were watching Titans practice about Robert Saleh, and I thought it works perfectly with a clip I heard up in New York recently from WFAN about Saleh and Brian Dable. So I want to bring this conversation to air coming up next. 615-737-1025. We'll also take your thoughts on boy bands. Why not? 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingett, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. If you have more thoughts on boy bands, 615-737-1025. I ruled against Connor Newt. Connor Newt is in charge of the music today. The theme is boy bands. And he played Boys to Men. And I said, no, doesn't work. Boys to Men is not a boy band. Boys to Men is an R&B group. It's different. So let me know what you think, 615-737-1025. I know Connor is going to redeem himself this hour because he is a plucky young man. But today at Titans practice, the headlines, Jeffrey Simmons throws a punch, gets thrown out of practice. Cam Ward hooks up with Carnell Tate for a 60, 65-yard deep touchdown pass. If you're a Titans fan, you hope to see a lot more of that. Dan Moore left because of an undisclosed injury. No update on Dan Moore, although when he left the field, he did so under his own power. He did not appear to be in any like apparent serious pain. So I guess we'll find out more about Dan Moore's status tomorrow or Thursday. I think Saleh said we would find out more tomorrow. But we were all at practice today. And Derek, you and I were watching practice from the sideline. And you brought up something really interesting about Robert Saleh as we were watching him interact with all of the players before practice. And we will get to that point. But first, I want to play a clip I saw last week. Now, look, if you listen to sports talk radio, you know New York sports talk radio is a completely different beast. And the other day on WFAN's morning show, Boomer and Gio, Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti was talking about Robert Saleh and how he'll do in his second chance as a head coach in the NFL here in Tennessee. I want to play the clip first, and then I want to get to what Derek said, because when Derek and I were having this conversation, Derek had not heard this clip. But I think it dovetails nicely into what we're going to discuss. So let's start, Connor, with the clip, from Greg Giannotti of WFAN on Robert Saleh.
I just don't understand why people think he's going to be a good head coach.
Yeah, I don't. I
mean, I understand that the stink of the Jets is a thing, and when people leave the Jets, they seem to get better. But this guy was in over his head, and he came across as not a very bright person. Wow, it's true. I mean, I felt like he just didn't have the intellect to really run the team in the way that he needed to. I mean, he just did really stupid things, said really stupid things, was texting with Joe Beningo.
Yeah.
Like, how stupid do you have to be to
the whole thing with
text?
the house he was bulding?
Just did a lot of dumb things.
I don't know.
And then all of a sudden he's now going to become
a genius.
Tom Landry because he left the Jets.
Maybe.
But he's got an offensive coordinator who also failed epically here in New York.
Sure did.
Who's going to be great. I mean, I want that team to go right down the toilet.
Right down the toilet, Greg Giannotti says about the Tennessee Titans with Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll. But, Derek, when you brought up the point I'm going to have you bring up right now, you hadn't heard that clip from Greg Giannotti, but I think it just works really nicely. So why don't you tell our listeners what you told me as you were observing Robert Saleh at the beginning of practice today?
Yeah, first, I mean, I don't feel the way they feel about it.
Well, again, it's WFAN. New York Sports Talk Radio is an entirely different.
And listen, their experience, whatever they experience, it was their experience. But I do believe, and this is what I conveyed to you, Adam, because you're watching this coach in his second term interact with everybody. And whatever happened in New York, he wants to be like so far removed from that, that he doesn't want to remember much of what went on, because I think a lot of it was out of his control. But I think a part of it too is from what has come out is, it's almost like he sort of fed into it. He allowed whatever was being said to get to him personally. And, sometimes, the true us come out when things like that happens, meaning, you want to go interact with the person in a sort of human way. And, a reporter or someone else may deem it as something else, but this is who you are. You want to confront the person. I think now what he's doing, he's playing the game the way the game should be played. I think he wants to be more personable. He wants to sort of go out of his way to make sure that like those moments in New York never show up again here in Nashville. And that's not a bad thing. It really isn't. So that's why when you have guys that have played for him, like John Franklin Myers, you ask them questions like that. Like, is it different from from his first stint to his second stint? And a lot of times you don't want to hear, yeah, it's the same. You want to hear some differences, because if it's the same, it's going to fail, because it failed there. If you don't change anything, your second go around is going to fail again. But I think, at least from what was coming out of New York, what I'm seeing is a guy that has transformed himself, and he's playing the game, so to speak, that he needs to play to ingratiate himself with everybody. And he's hoping that the talent on the field sort of take care of it, what it needs to take care of, and all of it can work out the way he wants it to.
What I said to you, Derek, is after you told me that earlier today, is it sounds like what you're observing is Robert Saleh perhaps smoothing some of his rough edges. Like, I want to be myself. I want to be my authentic self, but I was my authentic self in New York, and I failed, and I was skewered because of it. So although I'm coming to a new market, a market with less intense pressure, I'm like, as you said, I'm going to play the game a little bit more. I'm going maybe do some things I wouldn't normally do. That was your overall point to me.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I think you summed it up perfectly. It's refining the edges. Because listen, if you want to, two things is going to keep you in this league. And one, obviously, is your production, but then also you got to play the game the way the game is played on all levels. I'm not just talking about, as a player, but as a coach and as in management. There's a way that you go about your business. And if you don't, then you're going to find yourself not getting as many chances. But, if you do and you're winning, you stay in that position for a long time. So I think he just wants to, that whole New York thing. I think I would love to see him succeed, because that New York situation, we've seen it break players. It can break coaches too. So him getting a second opportunity here speaks volumes of what they saw in the interviews.
One texter says, I definitely hope they beat the Jets now 67-3. But Willie, I'm curious for your opinion on what Derek and I discussed. Plus, I know that our interactions, our viewings of Robert Saleh have been relatively limited. We have not seen him in a game setting yet as head coach of the Tennessee Titans. But I'd be curious for your observations of Saleh as a head coach from what you've been able to see so far.
So far, so good. I do buy into. I think he has the demeanor of a head coach, and I watched a lot of the stuff go down in New York. They were the Hard Knocks for a year. You got to see him day in, day out. He says some weird things, but that's what coaches have to find every day in those meetings. They're coming in with ideas. How do I grab my 53 guys or however many are in a camp right at the time? And not everybody responds to the same thing. You can't be boring. You got to come up with creative ways. And it is a lot of times the straight up bumper sticker stuff, right? Fast and violent, whatever, all these sayings, right? You pound those themes home, and that's how you talk to your team. And if it goes bad, there's almost nothing you could do when you're in New York. The Giants and Jets, the Jets, we know the story. They've struggled perpetually for most of their existence. There's just been blips, right? But really, I watched them a lot when I grew up in New York. The Giants have had more success, but they're pretty far removed from sustained success. It's been a while since they had. So there's a lot of angry football fans that those sports talk shows, the nature of it, that's who they're catering to. They're not catering to whether they think Robert Saleh or Brian Daboll are good guys. they're going to obliterate you when you lose.
Mm-hmm.
It is always going to be on the coach. And like Derek said, this is the thing that I'm curious about with Saleh. If he's learned lessons of how to handle the media, because you cannot win the battle with the New York media. You cannot. Especially if they know that you're texting somebody and trying to massage them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like blood in the water. Especially if the team isn't doing very well. And I do wonder how ownership reflects on that when the crowd turns on you some and the team is spinning. It's awfully hard to overcome that. Now, when he says in that clip, he did so many dumb things.
Mm-hmm.
Is he talking about dumb things with the media, or is he talking about, hey, here's a play in this game in the third quarter? I don't know what he's thinking here. I'm sure they had some of that, but when you're losing, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson was his quarterback. Zach Wilson was his quarterback. He's a terrible. That was awful.
I say this all the time. Tim Boyle started regular season NFL games for Robert Saleh. Remember watching Tim Boyle in Titans preseason games and being like, man, this guy stinks. Imagine starting him in an actual football game with meaningful stakes.
Right. And here's what Saleh has going for him here. So far, he's not putting any crazy expectations on there. The expectations, I think, are fairly low around the league. I think the crowd, the fans will be patient. They're not expecting them to make the playoffs this year. And they're succeeding a staff that had the worst reputation in their own right. That plays into his benefit, I think, because, and I think, I feel like it feels better so far. The response. Now, they haven't lost a game yet. They haven't had stuff go awry yet. It's super, super early. But I think so far, I'm liking what I see. I'm liking what I see.
The old adage is what? You don't want to be the guy after the guy. But I think in this situation, you do want to be the guy after the guy, because the guy that was in this seat last year did a horrible job. So everybody's optimistic, when the next guy comes in, because they feel in their mind, it can't be as bad as what we saw last year.
One thing Robert Saleh is going to do differently, he made this clear even before he was hired by the Tennessee Titans. He's going to call the plays as the head coach, the defensive plays, as the head coach. He did not do that in New York, and after the fact, he regretted not calling the defensive plays. I think he said he didn't feel like he was really in the game when he wasn't calling the plays. So he's going to call the plays. So there's something different, something he learned from his first experience. He's going to call the defensive plays as head coach of the Titans. And Saleh would certainly admit, I'm not sure he has publicly admitted this, but I'm sure he would admit now that he was too hyper-focused on the outside noise in New York. And as Willie said, it's tough to block out the noise of the New York media in any sport, not just football. So I do wonder how he goes about doing that this time. We're a much different market in terms of size than New York. We're not as cutthroat as New York or demeaning as New York. But even then, there are going to be people who will be critical of Robert Saleh in this town. I wonder if he handles it a little bit better. I seem to recall a story about how he was obsessed with finding leaks in the Jets building. Hopefully he leaves that in New York and doesn't try to do that here if a story comes out that he doesn't like.
Yeah, he's going to, the thing about it here, what makes it different, obviously, listen, New York media is unlike any other media.
Yes.
But in this small echo chamber here in Nashville, it can get very loud.
Oh, yeah.
It can get very loud.
Different type.
Exactly. It's different. Loud. Exactly. It can get loud. So you just hope that the experience he had in New York helps him with the experience here, because yes, it's not New York, but it still gets loud and they still write about things that you do or don't do. And eventually these questions will be asked to you during a press conference.
From a sheer echo chamber, as you put it, that's a good point. Remember, it was Brian Callahan's second year as the coach, where on the opening day, the whole thing about he didn't know the rules and the clock management, like that was a second-year head coach. But it's like overnight, that echo chamber took his credibility from, hey, we're not sure yet, to this isn't the guy.
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy that needs to be on the hot seat. Like that was overnight. So that's the Nashville media. That's not the New York media.
Let's go to Marshall on our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com. Marshall, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks for taking my call, guys. Hey, I just you guys are at practice, every day for however long it's been. I think what are we on, day 2, day 3? But anyway, I'm just hoping maybe you could explain to me and just kind of put it into words the differences that you notice between the way Coach Sell is running practices versus the way Coach Callahan ran practices. And I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Marshall. You guys have been to more practices than me, so I'll let you handle that.
I think that's a better question. That's something that we would ask the players because they're truly not from the outside looking in. And we're on the far outside looking in. It seems like things are moving at a different pace, but again, we said the same thing about Callahan. That things were moving a little bit different, and you saw what happened. While he was his short tenure here, things do feel a little different. But I'm not sure yet how much different, and I'm sure they changed some, things that they may do earlier than what they did last year. I noticed,
DMase, they don't do this is a little thing, but
the buzzer thing, they don't do that. But I don't know. I don't know if they did that last year.
And they don't do the stop in the middle of the team stuff to have the kicker come in and kick some pressure field goals. So they do special teams a little bit differently.
Yeah, so everything is just
I don't notice anything big difference.
And the music is awful.
You should talk, Mr. Boys to Men boy band over there. No, I'm kidding.
It's good music.
I didn't mind the music today.
No, the music is fine.
I wouldn't mind like a little bit more shake it up from day to day. Just like,
but they got to get they got to get the speakers on cue.
Yeah, they had an echo thing where we were standing. We were hearing a reverberation
of the music on the other side. Yeah, it was a little bit off.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Robert Saleh at the beginning of Titans training camp. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, friend of the show, Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated. He does this every year. He predicts every single NFL game of the season. Win, loss. He doesn't do the score. He was pretty close on the Tennessee Titans a year ago. We will reveal his prediction for the Titans this season and how y'all would feel if it comes true. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. You can always count on one thing around here. It's going to get hot in our listening area. Hey, Willie Donick here. And if your AC has been running nonstop like mine, it's a great time to have the folks at Lee Company give it a little attention before a small problem turns into a big problem. I had this just a few weeks ago. I had a technician come out, tune it up, make sure all of the filters were running properly, that the unit was working, and make sure it was ready for the rest of the summer. And we got that done. It's one of those things that's easy to put off until your house isn't cool anymore. Schedule your appointment today at LeeCompany.com. That's LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. All right, let's get one more. You know, having a great team makes all the difference. Hey, Willy Donick here, and when it comes to taking care of my home, I want a team I can count on. That's why I like Lee Company Plus. For as little as $14 a month, you get 4 annual visits to keep your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical systems in great shape. Plus, I benefited from this. I'm a member. I save 20% on repairs and get priority service when we need it most. Learn more at leecompany.com/plus. That's leecompany.com/plus. Lee Company, all you need.
DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025, The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Friend of the show, Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated, one half of the MMQB podcast with Albert Breer.
Highly recommend.
Yes.
Good podcast.
Does this exercise every training camp. He predicts the outcomes of every single NFL game. Now, he doesn't do the scores, but he does the wins and losses. So earlier today, Connor Orr published his predictions for every NFL team this season. Now, before I reveal his prediction for the Titans, I do want to make one thing clear. Last year, when Orr did this exercise, he had the Titans going 4-13, so he was 1 win off, but he correctly predicted the Titans' pre-bye week record at 1-8, including the only win at Arizona. So what actually happened is what Connor Orr predicted last year doing this exercise. And some of you may say, well, how hard can that be? The Titans were supposed to be bad. I think it's pretty impressive that he had them at 1-8 with the only win coming at Arizona. And
so he was ready to predict about the running back who dropped the ball just side of the
Yes.
goal line and the fluky bounce that banged around and got Tyler Lockett his only touchdown.
Yes.
That was pretty good predicting.
Yes, absolutely. So this season, Connor Orr predicts the Tennessee Titans will go 6-11. He has them at 6-11. Now, if you're wondering how those 6 wins come about, he has the Titans starting 0-2 with losses to the Jets and the Eagles. And by the way, if Robert Saleh loses,
he can't lose to the Jets.
Oh my God, if that happens, if the Jets beat the Titans, we're just gonna have open phone lines for 3 hours the day after week 1. But Orr has the Titans starting 0-2, losing to the Jets and the Eagles. He has the Titans winning at New York in the Brian Day Bowl. See what I did there?
Did he use that term, or was that yours?
Now that's an Adam Vingan
special.
Okay. So he has them beating the Giants, losing in weeks 4 and 5 to Baltimore and Houston before winning consecutive games against Indianapolis and Cleveland. So here is what Connor Orr wrote about his prediction for the Titans. Again, 6-11. Quote, the Titans have what may be the most difficult offensive line to get excited about in the NFL. The defense is vastly improved, and a star-studded coaching staff is taking the reins in year 2 of the Cam Ward experiment, with number 4 pick Carnell Tate added to the fold offensively. I have the Titans starting the season 0-2 before winning the very high-octane Brian Daboll Bowl. See, he called it the Daboll Bowl. I called it the Day Bowl. The Brian Daboll Bowl at MetLife Stadium, which propels the team to victories over both Indianapolis and Cleveland before the bye week. I like the Titans to improve in the short term because I believe Daboll will put some guardrails on Ward, and with a clear intention to improve Ward's receiving room and intermediate targets, at least slightly raise the floor for a quarterback whose accuracy numbers, efficiency numbers, and blitz success were downright concerning a year ago. Daboll has had a successful track record with bigger-framed mobile quarterbacks who aren't afraid to leave the pocket, and his ability to use that threat as a catalyst to create mismatches is one of Daboll's greatest strengths. So let me ask all of you this at 615-737-1025, and then, of course, I will ask Willie and Derek for their thoughts. If this comes to pass, if Connor Orr is Nostradamus and the Tennessee Titans go 6-11, maybe they win different games than Orr predicted. By the way, the wins he has, week 3 at New York, week 6 at Indianapolis, week 7 versus Cleveland, week 10 versus Jacksonville, week 13 versus Washington, and week 17 versus Pittsburgh. Those are the 6 wins he has on the schedule. But let's not look at the specific games. Mm-hmm. If the Titans go 6-11, 1, would we accept that? And 2, what would that mean? What does that look like? For example, if the Titans go 6-11, does that solidify Cam Ward as a viable starting quarterback? Willie, if the Titans go 6-11, as Orr projects, what does that mean?
I think it could be a tangible first step. I think you could walk away and say, hey, we doubled our win total. That's something. And it would set the stage, I think, for higher expectations the following year, which is the first year of the new stadium. I think, as we've all said, it's how it looks. It's not necessarily who you beat. But I do wonder, when you listen to the week-to-week schedule, does it end up being something that doesn't amount to as much as last year, where it was a tough schedule? I still think that might be the best thing they have going for them is they're due to have some more breaks. Like they caught a really difficult schedule for a last place team last year.
Yeah, they did. I think you can look at it in a few different ways. I think first, people would look at it as, okay, from a record standpoint, they showed improvement. They doubled their win total from the previous year. I think that's where, if you do a tally of, what people think the Titans record would be, it'll probably end up somewhere around 5 to 7 or 8 games. So
I think the over-under in Vegas is 6.5.
So, yeah, so about 6 games. So people will look at it from that standpoint. Well, they doubled the win total from last. So that shows the development. But then it also goes to, what Willie mentioned. How does it look? Is the quarterback showing improvement? Are they winning because of the quarterback, or are they winning despite the quarterback? How has the offensive line gotten? So there are a lot of other variables within, this season. And to just say, well, 6-11, that's a true assessment of what this team is, and that's all we need to see. No, that's a part of it. I want to see the inner workings. Is Cam getting better? Is the offensive line getting better? Did they have injuries? There are a lot of other factors that goes along with this, but I think just from a pure fan standpoint, Ward's development matches or exceed a little of what the 6-11 record says, I think fans will be optimistic. It's how they look in those 11 losses, because you can win 6 games, but if you just are awful in those 11, I mean, again, is that development? Are your team making the progression it needs to make to be a better team once you open up that stadium? So there are several different ways to look at it.
I think too, are they in the game more?
Yeah.
How do they stand up to, the teams in their division? If they're losing and they go 6-11, are they battling? Are they in the game deep into the fourth quarter? I think they had a surprising amount of good starts early last year, but they couldn't sustain it throughout the game, and they wilted some. I want to see if they can stand. Are they better from a depth perception or perspective to be able to, look like they belong with the bigger guys or getting closer to the bigger dogs?
And also, how are they doing within their own division? Because how many of those games are division games?
Let's count. All right. He has the Titans losing week 5 to Houston, so that's 0-1, beating Indianapolis 1-1, beating Jacksonville 2-1, losing at Jacksonville 2-2, losing to Indianapolis, losing to Houston. So 2-4 in the division.
2-4 in the division. Okay. I mean, again, if because ultimately, the division games are the important games. And even if you go 500 in your other games, if you win your division, if you can beat every team twice in your division, you're good. And you just win half of the games outside of the division. So, going 2-4 in the division.
2-4.
I mean, that's progress because they only won 1 division game last year, did it? Or did they not win the division?
I want to say they've won 2 or 3 division games total over the past 2 or 3 years.
They did not win a game in the division.
Exactly.
So
winning 2 games in the division, that is making progress because ultimately you want to win your division first and foremost, I think.
If you're curious, Orr's order of finish in the AFC South: Houston at 13-4, Jacksonville at 9-8. Congratulations, Titans fans! You're not finishing in last place at 6-11. Or also has the Colts going 6-11, but I guess virtue of some sort of tiebreaker, the Colts finishing last in the AFC South. So Houston at 13-4, Jacksonville at 9-8, Tennessee at 6-11, Indianapolis at 6-11.
So just for a couple of examples, like within the division, I would like to see less games like we saw at Indy last year.
Yeah.
Game was over.
Blowout.
Yeah.
And it was before the wheels fell off for the Colts. The Colts were kind of on a roll at that point. That was week 8. But it was a mismatch.
Yeah.
Right? The games against Houston.
Mismatches.
Didn't score at Houston. That was the reaction by Cam after the game to set them at 0-4. But that was men against boys. Like, come on. And then it wasn't a whole lot better. The rematch, even though the score was closer, it was just a struggle all game long. They lost 25-3 against Jacksonville, then 41-7. Like I want to see them. You want to be able to really be a tough out in your division if you're not going to be a good team. Let's take for a given right now that they aren't a great team. Can they look like they're getting closer to the top teams in the division?
Let's go to Tristan on our phone line. Tristan, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Okay, I think the Titans will go 2-7, 2-15. I don't think Robert Saleh is that great of a head coach. If you look at his record with New York Jets, he was 7-10, and the last year that he got fired, he was. They just fired him after 2 wins basically, and I think Cam Ward is an athlete on the field, not a real quarterback like C.J. Carr at Notre Dame or some of the other quarterbacks that will be coming out soon, like Arch Manning.
Thank you, Tristan.
Thank you, Tristan.
All right, 2-15 from Tristan. But let me
looking for another quarterback. He's implying, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, I would. If they go 2-15, I can see the discussion at least coming up. I hope it doesn't get to that.
Brett says it all depends on Cam Ward, but I don't think that defense loses to the Jets. 7-10 or 8-9. If they are 6-11 and Ward is benched in week 11, no bueno. Well, let me ask you this, because you are absolutely right. 6-11, not a good season, but a vast improvement from the past couple of seasons. That would be the same amount of wins the Titans have had over the past 2 seasons combined. So can the Titans win 6 games in spite of Cam Ward? Like to me, if Cam Ward flames out and we learn that Cam Ward isn't going to be a franchise quarterback, I don't think they're winning 6 games.
No,
they're winning 2 games, like Tristan suggested. So I'm just wondering, that number 6, it's not a big number, but do you think the Titans can win 6 games without Cam Ward showing improvement?
They can. I don't think at least I don't think they can, because this whole coaching staff was hired to get the quarterback in a position where he's developing as the team is developing. And if he's not developing, you can't, unless you bench him, and I don't think they're going to do that, but you can't go 6-11 necessarily and your quarterback just playing horrible. I mean, he played pretty good in the second half and they looked a lot better. So if you're saying he's going to come into the season and play like he did the first half of the season, that's the only way they don't win 6 games. I mean, if he plays that way the whole season, they won't even reach 6 games. There'd be another 2 or 3 win team.
615-737-1025. Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated. Every summer at the start of training camp, he predicts the outcomes of every single NFL game. He has the Tennessee Titans going 6-11 this season, starting 0-2 and 1-4, then winning consecutive games to get up to 3-4, 3-5 before the bye week. One, would you accept that as a Titans fan after 2, 3, and 14 seasons in a row? Would you accept a 6-11 season? What would that mean? Would that mean Cam Ward is clearly a viable starter in the NFL? You tell us. 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction and wrap up the show. Coming up next, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingen and Donick 1025. The game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here with you. Wrapping up Boy Band Tuesday on the program. Excellent job, Connor, even though I did give you grief for your Boys to Men edition. But now you've learned something today, and you'll take that with you to the 6 coming up at the top of the hour. What's on the docket today?
Will there be more boy bands during the 6?
That could be negotiated for sure.
Okay.
Parker Kelly's going to join the program. We're going to talk Titans camp. He was out there today. I'm sure you guys saw him. So
it's hard to miss Parker Kelly. He's a tall kid.
He's a tall fella. We'll talk a lot about the skirmish, a lot about what happened, a lot about Carnell Tate. Did that play that he had today, does that show you that he can truly be a contender or a contributor on this offense? So a lot to talk about in the next hour.
All right. So don't touch that dial after we get off the air here in a few minutes. Connor Newt and Parker Kelly will have the 6 coming up at the top of the hour. One texter says, unpopular opinion. Given the bleep show that was last season, I don't think we can count it against Ward. We have to give him at least, in all caps, 2 more years to develop. I need to see progress, but much better than 6 and 11 for Ward is unrealistic. Patience is a virtue in this situation. I hear what you're saying, texter, and I understand why you think it's an unpopular opinion. The problem is we have seen recently, last season, 2 year 2 quarterbacks help their teams make significant improvements. Caleb Williams and most importantly, or most notably, Drake May. So I hear the point, but there's not going to be that patience. Titans fans are going to want Cam Ward to make a Caleb Williams, Drake May-esque year 2 leap. I think asking Cam Ward to be the runner-up for the MVP award, which I think Drake May was this past season, that is unrealistic. That I will say. But I patient, you know how it is in this league, especially with quarterbacks. Patience is not a virtue in these situations.
No, patience isn't preached in the NFL. Used to, though, in the olden days, yes. But in this era of football, and I think this era of just sports, period, I think patience is fleeting. Especially if your team hasn't been winning. I think people would be more patient if this team was showing progress over the last couple of years. But this team hasn't showed progress. They've regressed as a team. And then you add in a young quarterback, and if he's not progressing, and it may not all be his fault, but the fans are looking at it from the standpoint of we've been losing for so long. If you're not winning, ASAP, then it's hard for us to buy in. So patience is patience. You wish they would show it, but people are not going to show patience.
I also think the perception can be different, even if the 1-loss record isn't way, way better. And last year, they came out of the gate. Now, here are the 4 teams they played out of the gate. Denver, pretty darn good team at the end of the year. The Rams, really good team by the end of the year. Indianapolis, they played twice in the first 8 weeks. That was a really good team at that time. And then, of course, they lost their quarterback, and it all went to...
The Titans did not catch the Colts.
They caught the best version of the Colts.
Correct.
And they got destroyed in both games. And then at Houston turned into a pretty solid team.
Playoff team.
So great defense.
They went 0-4 and really didn't get close to winning any of the games. And at that time, I don't know that anybody realized how good Denver was or realized how good the Colts were going to be in the first half of the season. But I guess how much confidence did they lose? How much cachet with the fans did they lose? I would say a lot, right? That took its toll early. And then they finally won a game, which was very fluky against Arizona. And they came back against a bad Raider team and just laid a big egg. And that's when they fired the coach, right?
Yes.
So after 6 weeks, it could not have gone worse. They need a better start. Their record doesn't have to be way different than 1-5. Maybe it's 2-4. But if you're playing better, your team looks better, then that can help a lot. Do you agree with that? Like they were just everything. There was just nothing to cling to.
Yeah, weeks I think I think the first game of the season last year sort of gave them a sense of, because remember, that was a tight game, basically the whole game.
Which one?
Denver with
Yes,
the Titans of Denver.
yeah,
that was pretty
somehow.
much a tough game, a tight game.
And a tough game.
But then after that, you get blown out by the Rams, you get blown out by Indianapolis, you get blown out by Houston. So that game that you had in Denver no longer look as good as it did because of the 3 losses after that.
And in that game, Callahan lost
exactly
with all the he should have challenged the play in bounds. He didn't know the rule. All of that stuff, and the shaky game management at the end of the first half, and then in the second half when they had a chance to kick a field goal and tie it or take the lead. I can't remember what it was. I think it was to take the lead, right? Where they the quarterback on Netflix said, "Hey, we're going to run it here." No, we're not. I want to throw.
And then they said they show a sack.
Okay, whatever you do, don't take a sack. You know, that killed. Even though that was a close game and it should have been somewhat encouraging, that wasn't the theme that Monday.
Exactly. But then subsequently after that, you get blown out 3 weeks in a row, and then you win a fluky game, and then you lose to a team that may been as bad as you know, in the Las Vegas Raiders. So, you know, I think a lot of this has to do with how this team look and how Cam is performing within, because we look at it and we say, well, from the players that they added alone, that should make this team a better, during the week compared to what it was last year. And if the quarterback can develop the way, we need him to, then with the addition of the players that they brought in, this should be a better team this upcoming season.
One texter says, the more I think about it, if Cam is less than 500, he's playing for his job because this league is about the Benjamins.
I would say, I will say this, that if Cam if he doesn't play at least the way he played in the second half, I'm not saying they're going to be looking to replace, but I think that does sort of get the ball rolling on, okay, what is our next course of action if next season? Because essentially I think, that's what Carolina had to think about with Bryce Young, in the next following year. If this continues to look bad, what do we do next? And then in his defense, he came out, he played a lot better. He led him to a playoff. So I do think if Cam doesn't come out the way he finished the season, if he doesn't play that way at all next year, I think there would have to be some talks on, okay, what if? But I think that's with any organization that drafts a quarterback first overall, and you're not seeing a progression in the first 2 years that you need to see. I think you would have to ask yourself that question.
We did get our first college football poll of the season, the AFCA coaches poll earlier today. Ohio State, the runaway at number 1, top 5, Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, Georgia 3, Texas 4, Notre Dame 5. The SEC had 9 teams in the initial coaches poll, including half of the top 10. The Big Ten had 8 teams in the poll. So take that, Big Ten. I know you guys discuss this among yourselves. I'm being facetious. I know Nick Saban. I heard Nick Saban, I think this was during SEC Media Day, say, well, the depth of our conference is so much better. I mean, come on. Nick Saban, take that, Nick Saban, put him in a time machine, send him back 10 years and show him what he said. I think 10 years ago, Nick Saban would have kicked present-day Nick Saban right in the crown jewels if he heard him say, well, the depth of the conference is better.
It is.
Oh,
I agree with Coach Saban.
Nobody cares about the depth.
No one cares about the depth of the conference.
This is a new conversation now.
No one cares.
Exactly.
It's called moving the goalposts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. Now all of a sudden, people want to talk about the depth of the conference. Nobody ever talked about the depth of the conference. Nobody.
Like when the SEC
All right.
How many?
Hold-
like,
hold on.
yes.
Remember when the SEC could probably only go 3 teams
Look,
deep?
this is only temporary. Okay, not winning the championships, but it's always been better. The depth has always been better in the SEC. It's just they're in a lull at the top right now. Let's look at the schedule for Notre Dame. Okay, Notre Dame is going to be in everybody's preseason bowl top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, bad year last year, Purdue, North Carolina, coached by Bill Belichick, Stanford, BYU at BYU, semi-tough game there. Navy, Miami. It says versus Miami. I don't know if that's a neutral site. Maybe I think it's a home game.
Notre Dame ain't got no conference.
Right. Boston College, SMU, Syracuse. I mean, that is a soft schedule.
But they're
Miami
not in
and
the
BYU,
conference.
your 2 tough games. Name me another tough game in there.
Miami's at home, by the way.
So I'm just pointing the road to the playoffs. They don't have to play a conference championship game.
Here we go.
I mean, this is not anti-Big Ten because Notre Dame is just a team in there trying to win a championship. But the road that they take to the playoff is different than if I did the schedule for SEC
Ole
teams.
Miss.
If you're watching,
State.
Tougher road.
if you're watching the stream,
Auburn.
I'm currently playing the world's smallest violin for Willy Donick as we wrap up the show. We'll probably get more into this tomorrow, but that will do it for us today. No Titans practice tomorrow, or at least not open to the media. So we won't have any practice to discuss, but we'll talk about more of what we've seen through the first week of training camp. We'll get into it all tomorrow at 3:00, but stay tuned for the 6 with Connor Newt and Parker Kelly coming up next.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that song? Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We're back on these airways talking more Tennessee Titans and training camp starting at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. And as I always say, we're going to be talking and
You're going to be listening.
peace.